I told Tony I've been drinking for 5 hours straight, so it should be a pretty good podcast. Well, yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, so like I bought all this
Yeah,
liquor,
yesterday was St. Patrick's Day.
What could go wrong?
and I'm Italian. You know what sucks? There's no holidays for Italian people. We need a holiday for that, where it's just like nonstop pasta and wine and
Oh, that no. That's Happy Mondays at Olive Garden.
Every day is an Irish holiday at all.
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 228. Solidly beating it.
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal in the gaming industry today. I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, the inebriated Daniel Kaiser and the drunk off his ass, Brent Adams.
kind of, sorta.
Brent, how you doing this week, man?
What's up? My narcoleptics of napalm. My sleepyheads of slaughter. How art thou?
Sleepyheads. How can you be sleepy and ready to slaughter at the same time? I don't understand.
If there's anybody
you're-
that's going to make it work, it's going to be this crew right here.
That's true. That is
You
true.
are always ready to slaughter. Does not matter your
Brent
alertness.
could be in the middle of the night, fast asleep, always ready to slaughter.
As my wife will attest, I'm usually most dangerous when I'm asleep.
Yeah.
And we're gonna say that statement, then we're gonna set it down and
Yes.
step away from it.
Lots of
Your reaction time
fatherhood
doubles
jokes
when
in
you're
there
asleep.
somewhere. I don't know.
DK, how about you? How you doing this week, man?
I'm doing great, TG and 3D. I am ready for March Madness. It is officially mid-March, and the tournament is getting ready to happen. I'm ready to dance. I don't know who's going to win, but I've filled out my brackets, and I'm ready to win some bucks, even though I don't have any clue who's going to win it this year. I'm just saying Florida because that's what everybody else is saying. So go Gators, even though I hate you.
Goddamn right, go Gators. Hey, watch
yeah.
your fucking mouth.
I
Yeah,
know
that's
Brent has an
floating
affinity
home.
for the
Brent's,
Gators. A lot of people are picking them, so we'll see what happens. Personally, obviously, I'm hoping that the Colorado Buffs, the CU Buffs, can make it to the finals, but that's a long shot. So we'll see what happens. Good time for a good time of the year for hoops. So we'll see what happens. That's why they call it March Madness. You never know what's going to happen.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get crazy and run through the gauntlet.
Gauntlet.
All right, everybody, we are here in the gauntlet, and our first big story is the news that the Xbox One will be going to some other places other
Nice.
than North America. That's finally some news on that. Brent, where is it going, and when's it going?
All right, so we found out that the Xbox One is going to be hitting 26 new markets starting this September. We don't have exact release dates for each territory, and it's a really long list that I'm not going to get through. But if you live in
Let's go through
places
them one
like
by one.
Sweden, Norway, Japan, India, Israel, Denmark, Finland, Colombia. Actually, I am reading all these, aren't I? Damn it. Anyway, if you're living in one of the places that the Xbox One hasn't come out right now, there's a good chance that you can go ahead and start looking at September for your latest next-gen console from Microsoft. Of course, the Xbox One should have, in theory, launched last November, but no.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty bold strategy, Cotton, to debut the console 10 months later in some of these, which are some of these are pretty important markets as far as the game
Sure.
industry goes. What do you guys think? Do you think that Xbox ever had a chance of really gaining foothold in some of these territories? I mean, famously, Japan is a nation that they line their bird cages and their litter boxes with Xboxes. I mean, does it matter that it's coming out 10 months later in Japan? Is Microsoft, did they lose a lot of ground by waiting this long? Are they going to gain a lot of ground when they come out this September? What do you guys think?
I think they'll gain some ground just by just the sheer numbers aspect of
Just the fact that it will be available.
Yeah, just the
I
fact
mean,
that it'll be available. But I mean,
up until it was available, it was really hard for them to gain ground in these areas.
it does.
He's absolutely right.
It does kind of harken back to the argument last week about release dates and delays and all this stuff. I mean, in the 8 territories where it was announced, that to be a launch product in November of 2013, where it has missed that, and will now be included in this September rollout. I think there is some damage done there. I think that people feel a little slighted. And again, this goes back to the whole kind of mentality of announcing things before they're official. I think that Microsoft would have been better served to kind of just wait on announcing all these territories until they were sure, like they are now, that they'll launch in September. So we'll wait on the official release dates, but I do think that some of the damage is done, although, despite that, just having it being available is going to help them in this kind of arms race that they are in against Sony, who has obviously moved more units at this point. But, it'll be interesting to see how things level off. We've talked for a while now about, the launch year and the launch dates, and then things kind of, taking hold and leveling off over the course of time. We're entering that phase now where we're going to start to see, all grounds being equal. But at the same time, I think some of the damage is done, and that some people in those territories might feel a little slighted, and I don't blame them for feeling that way.
Yeah, I don't blame them for feeling that way, although I don't really think that this is that big a deal. I think, Microsoft's consoles have always sort of been seemingly more kind of geared towards the North American market to begin with, and then sort of everyone else secondary. So in a way, I don't think they expected too much different. And the one thing I would say is this is probably going to make for a much better launch of the system. Frankly, better than the launch we got last week whenever Titanfall came.
Yeah, because the system, because the system will actually have everything that it was supposed to have originally working.
Think about this. They're going to get a system that will have all the patches to the dashboard that have made some pretty critical changes to things, plus whatever comes between now and September.
Yeah.
Which there's already another update coming next month. That's going to address, the friends notifications, things like that. So there's all kinds of things. Plus, they're going to launch with games like Titanfall that'll have all the, potentially have all the DLC and stuff like that ready to go. I mean, they'll probably still hold it off a little bit from launch for some of that stuff, but they'll have any patches, any fixes, all the stuff that we kind of have had to put up with. I think they'll have fixed by the point that it releases in these other markets. And I'm not necessarily so sure that everybody that has bought PS4s at this point, because it has been in all these other markets, and they've been able to sell more systems because it's been available in more places. I'm not so sure that they don't have this piece of hardware that sat there for a year that got a little bit of use here or there for one or two pretty cool games versus this brand new to them system that drops with a couple of pretty big titles is not maybe almost gives them a little bit of a head up when it does drop. I don't know.
If it was any other paradigm other than Xbox trying to be popular in Europe, I would say that makes total sense. But I think that Microsoft they do appear to have kind of an uphill battle ahead of them just because of the fact that they've not really been able to make inroads in some of those places prior to now. So it will be interesting to see if the fact that it is delayed, the fact that it is a Microsoft console, which hasn't traditionally done that well, if it is kind of mitigated by the fact that when this thing comes out, it will be a really well-rounded console with some really great content, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and also I think it's you have to kind of your expectations. Are you expecting it to come out and do better than the 360 did in those markets at the time? I think probably so. Are you expecting it to do it as good as the PS4 did? Probably no. You know, so I mean, I think it really is what they're expecting out of it, and we'll find out here in a few months.
Personally, I'm just excited to see Russians yelling at their TV.
As opposed to throwing things that are on fire at each other.
We're going to have some Russians connecting Kinects up to the front of cars. We're going to have Kinect dash cam vids. I guarantee it. All right, so next up, we get a little bit of a release window for Metal Gear Solid 5. No, not Ground Zeroes.
Not that Metal Gear
but
Solid
the other
5.
Game in that series, the Phantom Pain. When are we going to get to play this, DK?
Well, that's debatable. So Ground Zeroes is out by the time that you hear this. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, the prelude to... the prologue to Phantom Pain, obviously, is out. And one of the interesting caveats about its release is the fact that when you register Ground Zeroes, the message that you got... was that, to come back in early 2015 to claim your exclusive DLC, downloadable content, for the aforementioned Phantom Pain. But the issue with that is that we've kind of suspected that this was coming out at the end of 2015, whereas now people are saying early 2015. So we don't know exactly when this is coming out, but a spark of hope that this game might be coming out sooner rather than later has been ignited this past week with the release of Ground Zeroes, as now it appears that Konami is kind of encouraging fans that this title is coming out earlier than expected. So the reviews thus far on Ground Zeroes, obviously using Fox Engine and kind of serving as a prologue to the Phantom Pain, are all indicative of the fact that we have some good things to look forward to in terms of the gameplay. But what do you guys make of this scenario that this might come out in early 2015 as opposed to late 2015 as was initially expected, per the advice of Konami?
I don't know. It's so far away that a shift between those two, I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference. I mean, if it's early 2015, then it's basically a year away, and if it's late 2015, then it's a year and a half away. So I don't really know that. And both of those are so far from where we are right now that I don't know that either one
in relative
matters.
terms,
matters all that significantly. I think that. Having the prologue be what it is, come out at minimum, let's say a year prior to the full game, it's going to be interesting to see how people feel about Metal Gear. Whether they get excited for it now, whether they play this game, which admittedly, by their own admission, this game is just the first piece of it. It's a lead-in. It's a smaller, shorter experience. It costs you less money. That gives you some semblance of
demo.
I don't think that it's a demo. I don't think that's fair to say. But I think that that playing this game and getting excited about it right now doesn't really do you all that much good, considering the amount of time that you got to wait. So it's going to be interesting to see if people can hang on to, or if Konami and Kojima are able to rekindle people's excitement for this title as we get closer and closer to the release of the Phantom Pain. Now, a lot of that's just marketing, but a lot of that is, I think, going to depend on whether or not people have fond memories of Ground Zeroes.
Hold on just a second. Yeah. There you go. Okay. Woo! I'm sorry. I just beat Ground Zeroes. I started it when we started the story.
I was going to say, yeah, you sure as hell beat something.
You can beat it in 10 minutes.
I mean, it was a good 3 or 4 minutes of gameplay. I will definitely give them that.
Solid 3 or 4 minutes.
Solid. I mean,
I don't know if it sounded all that solid. I mean,
that's what she said.
In all honesty, I think it's it's kind of interesting to get a window into this, although it does kind of make you wonder, well, if it's that far away, like what was the purpose of Ground Zeroes? Like, I always felt like Ground Zeroes is kind of that, like, to be brutally honest with you, I always saw it a little bit like something like Gran Turismo Prologue or something, like where, look, we're not really close to having we want to give you this amazing experience, but since that honestly is going to take us a few years to get done, we're going to give you this to sort of give you an idea where we're headed, give you a little bit of a taste of it, and hopefully still a decent enough experience, but it's also going to be at a lesser price point, all the sort of things that I think there is some, I think they are genuinely trying to give you your money's worth, or however you want to look at it. But man, now it sort of seems like it's even closer than we thought, and gives you even more kind of pauses to like, well, why didn't you just maybe put this all together? I don't know. So it'll be sort of interesting to see what how it turns out. We were just talking before we recorded. I think all of us are sort of torn as to whether we are. I mean, I think Brent's definitely picking it up, but even he, I think, is
I'm not
like the interest level is not where,
because I have in-store credit burning a hole in my pocket.
Fair enough.
I just need something to spend it on.
For me,
exactly.
it's the title Zeroes is very prophetic, because I have zero interest in picking it up.
All right, well let's move over to something else that I have a lot more than zero interest in. I actually find this pretty sad. But we got the news this past week that, well, yeah, I guess that's true. It's sad in one sense, probably really, really good in another sense. We get the news that Koji Igarashi, the guy behind Symphony of the Night, behind basically every Castlevania for a portable platform, and the last couple of years, a couple of the mobile games out of Konami, has decided to leave Konami for hopefully greener pastures. Brent, do you want to tell us a little bit about what he might be moving on to, or do we have any ideas?
Well, we've got some ideas because he's let us know that he's leaving Konami as of March 15th. He's gone now, and he's moving on to basically blaze his own trail. He wants to go on, form his own company, and this is what he says, quote, "I've decided to break out on my own to have the freedom to make the kind of games I really want to make, the same kind I think fans of my past games want as well." And I think that there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be very happy to hear this. And it's fascinating to consider this path that he's taking. Look at Kenji Inafune, and there's some really interesting kind of parallels. Which
he even mentions that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think actually he does. So it's fascinating to kind of see some of these more well-known developers that are associated so strongly with these really foundational titles of gaming, and to see them finally breaking away from the companies that they've been associated with for decades and venturing out on their own in order to keep doing the thing that made them so successful. The reason that we all know these developers' names is because the games that they've created have cast such a long shadow, and it's kind of interesting to think about just that where we are in gaming, and why they feel like they need to leave these big companies in order to continue making the games that made them famous, and then also the fact that they kind of have the ability to do that with crowdfunding and so forth. So anyway, for my own part, I don't really see this as sad at all. I see this as a really, really positive thing. This is a really creative game developer getting out from underneath the big corporate structure that I think he feels was kind of preventing him from doing what he wanted to do, and now he's going to be free to pursue whatever. I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I guess when I said sad, I meant more just the fact that he has to leave a company because he can't get. You can't do the projects that that really have brought them to where they're at in a lot of cases. With both Keiji Inafune and Koji Igarashi.
Yeah, I actually had the good fortune to interview Koji years ago, and him wearing his famous hat and that whimsical whip of his.
Did he whip you?
That was after the interview, but it was. It is kind of sad.
Did you drop a little bag of coins or anything when you did it? At least
no, a
he
turkey.
dropped something.
Okay.
But anyway, he is attached to that franchise, the Castlevania franchise, and so branching off. But as Brent touched on, I think we're living in a fascinating day and age of game development where these developers don't have to necessarily be beholden to their identity associated with a key franchise, but they could then branch out and start to develop new things, or just be known as great independent game developers, something that kind of touches on our discussion last week about people's independence and their name and their value and their artistic merit associated with the games that they create, and how their name attached to that is something important. So for Koji Igarashi, I think that it's something that I very much look forward to seeing what he contributes to the game industry. Obviously been an icon and a figure associated with a huge franchise. So it is. I understand what you're saying, though, TG, when you say it's a little sad to kind of see the end of an era in one sense. But I do also understand that it's the beginning of something new. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. But
Yeah, I think you're definitely right, and I would agree with Brent that I think it's definitely more on the upbeat note, because we are going to hopefully, he sort of talks about, wanting to do stuff that he really enjoys and he believes will enjoy, which, I think he's definitely known for sort of a certain sort of design to at least the large body of work that he's, done. So
yes.
Yeah, very, very, very cool. I'm hoping that we'll get to find out maybe more details. I think during GDC this week, I think he might be talking a little bit, and then I'm sure maybe by E3, maybe we'll start to hear something of. He mentioned maybe a Kickstarter, but also maybe like venture capital funding. So, hopefully we'll start to get more details on it coming up soon.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, last but not least, we've got some details on WildStar and what pre-order bonuses you can get for pre-ordering it right now. DK, what can we get?
Well, WildStar, the upcoming MMO from Carbine, is potential packed, and a lot of people I think who have experienced the beta have been looking forward to this one. The MMO space obviously is kind of crowded, but this one has a unique identity and its art style, its kind of personality have kind of helped set it apart. So we did learn this past week that Carbine is releasing this game on Tuesday, June 3rd, 2014. In addition to that release date, we do know that some snazzy pre-order incentives have been put on the table for people that want to explore their wild side, if you will. The game itself is releasing for $59.99, a standard price for an MMO. But if you're willing to fork over a little extra cash, you'll be able to know that for $15 extra, you can get the digital deluxe version of WildStar that includes the standard edition and everything that comes with that. That is like a 7-day, friend pass and I guess housing decor.
Game.
Yeah, the game, all that kind of stuff. But if you get the digital deluxe edition for $15 extra, you'll get exclusive content, including a unique costume and what I think is kind of cool. This like rocket house that
is pretty sweet.
Yeah,
looking.
that's pretty cool. It's like and then they have a mini ship. Housing decoration and a 10-slot storage bag.
Oh man, that's so. I was going to ask you if they had a 10-slot storage bag too. Wow,
they do, and
only if you upgrade to the $15
yes,
upgrade there.
Yes, which is also apparently a big selling point when you're getting married. But anyway. Also, the opportunity to reserve a character and guild names prior to launch. You get early access to the game on May 31st. So anyway,
three days early,
yeah, 3 days early. So what do you guys think of WildStar? I mean, I'm not a huge MMO guy, but this one actually seems fun. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it seems like they're not taking it too seriously in terms of like. I mean, like they're definitely taking the gameplay seriously, but like the universe and kind of like making
the
jokes.
tone of everything is
very fun and approachable. What do you guys think of it?
I am really interested in WildStar. I thought that it looked. I agree with you in that everything that I've seen about the game, everything I've read about the game, makes it sound very, very fun. What's kind of interesting to consider is, and I was thinking about as you were starting to talk, and I was beginning to nod off. You said something about how crowded the MMO space was, and I was thinking, it's like, wow, isn't that interesting to say? As opposed to like back when we started this show, when the MMO space was basically World of Warcraft, and that was it.
Yeah,
and it's fascinating that the market has kind of splintered as we've seen
crowded.
it happen, and there are all of these these MMOs have managed to to reach in and get a chunk of that space. So the thing that I have to say about this though is that as I was reading about all this, I found myself kind of surprised by the fact that they're going with this traditional buy the game for $60 and and then pay this, et cetera, et cetera. You'll get you'll get like 30 days of playtime, and then you've got like a monthly fee and everything. And I'm like, wow, like it's kind of interesting that they're entering the space using that more traditional model as opposed to the more what is becoming the MMO business model of free to play and supported by in-game purchases and so forth. And I have to say that that's definitely, if this were a free-to-play game, there is no doubt at all that I would pick it up and play it. But the fact that the entry point is $60 for me, I don't know. It brings me pause because how much time do I have to invest in an MMO, which is not a 4 to 10 hour experience or something. That's a solid investment in time, and I've got to pay $60 up front plus monthly installments moving ahead to get that playtime that I might not even not have enough free time to exploit. So I really, really like what I'm seeing about the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'll end up picking it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good point. First off, though, I just want to clarify something, just because I'm sure everybody out there is laughing at us right now. It's pronounced Mo. And so the one thing I can't say too is that I don't think you can't go back from the free-to-play model, like the totally free-to-play, like where you get the game up front and, play later. So in a way, I think they might be doing something maybe along the lines of like what the Old Republic did, which is kind of releasing, hoping that maybe that initial, audience that's really excited about the game gets in there and they kind of get what they can out of the game up front. And then who knows, maybe 6 months, a year down the road, they end up going free to play. You can't really go free to play and then go like, hey, we want to start charging people $60 for this game.
You have to start paid and then go free to play, right?
Exactly. I think that's somewhat of a, I think that may be where they're coming from to some degree. The one thing that I'm a little disappointed is like the first videos I saw from this game, I thought the game looked amazing. They frankly looked as though like if the game kind of looked more like the cinematics that have been coming out, I think I'd be even more excited about it. But they've kind of gone down that route of which every MMO kind of always goes down, which is the end game does not look quite as good as it probably could on current gen hardware. It's like it's always that, well, we got to make it, we got to dumb it down graphically a little bit to work on computers that are 10 years old. And it's like, why? I really wish somebody would,
it's the same art style though.
Just go in the other
but
direction.
It doesn't look as good. I mean, it just doesn't look it doesn't look near as good as it could if they would kind of just adopt and say like, hey, we want to make it compatible with computers that are 2 years old and going forward.
Well,
and I don't think that would hurt them that much in a lot of cases. But anyway, let's see.
I see what you're saying, but I have to say, creating a PC MMO is about as hard as it gets in terms of defining
coming from experience, right?
Well, no, about as far as defining a distinct type of set, because you have to cater to a variety of systems. You have to try to fit within expectations for pricing models. Okay, so I mean, this is
again though, if you're starting out with a $60 game, I think you go for more of a premium experience, and that's why I sort of think that you sort of raise the level. I think most PC gamers as a whole typically have pretty good hardware. And I'm not saying that every person out there rocking WoW is running a computer that is necessarily tip top of the line, but I mean that's kind of the point. If those people are probably not going to break away from WoW for some time, and so you kind of market yourself towards the new thing, be the hot thing, be the thing that like does frankly stand out from everybody else. I was watching a friend of mine play can't remember what it was, Rift or something the other day, and it took me like literally 10 minutes to realize it wasn't WoW. It looked like the same game to me.
Oh, really?
Like the interface is the same. And like looking at this game, I'm not saying that it looks like that. I'm just saying that I think that they should really start to try to really stand out. But and I will say the art style, I like it. I do. I think I would like it even more so if they really fully realized it.
Yeah, I just think that MMOs stand out based on their MMOs stand out based on, like look at Elder Scrolls Online. I mean, they're coming out. They're obviously have the connection to the storied franchise and the universe that people are familiar with, but they're doing a similar pricing structure. Yeah. So I think that
they kind of look better though than a lot of other things that are sort of in their same vein though too.
And
at least the worlds.
And they also, and you may not be aware of this, but they also have the Elder Scrolls in their title.
That's true. Yeah, but I think the industry at large is still trying to define what is a successful MMO, what you can get away with. Can you charge up front? Can you charge monthly fees? Do you need to be free to play? Can you be successful? Or are they like the audience for those games doesn't have a clear delineation between, oh, well, it's paid, so that means it's going to give me this versus a free, which is going to give me this. Everything is so kind of convoluted that it's very hard to distinguish between the offerings. So the industry is still trying to find its footing and figure it out, and this is going to be another step towards doing that, and I wish them success because they've worked very hard on this game and it seems to have a lot of personality. So I hope that it's successful, but ultimately I guess time will tell.
Remember, kids, when it comes to paying $60 for a game and then monthly installments, just say Mo.
All right, guys, we're here in the main topic this week, and we are going
awesome
to be
looking. Oh, sorry.
We are going to.
No, that's
we're
the
going
wrong
to go
story.
down.
Damn it.
We're going to go down a different reality this week with the announcement of Sony's. With the announcement of Sony's VR headset, aka codenamed Morpheus, because some reason this year people decided to refer to the Matrix again. A movie
Lawrence
that's like 10
Fishburne.
years
A
old.
movie and a character that's now selling luxury cars from Kia.
Exactly. We got a few details about the virtual reality headset, but also maybe just wanted to talk a little bit in general about the future of virtual reality gaming. So, Brent, do you want to tell us a little bit about what Sony announced today?
Well, we've been hearing rumors that Sony was going to be exploring VR technology, and this week at GDC we found out that that's correct. And as you said, it is called the Morpheus. This is a VR headset that's going to be for the PlayStation 4, and this, of course, joins the already established and widely known Oculus Rift, and possibly some VR offering from Microsoft, which we're hearing rumors that they're gonna jump on the bandwagon. So Project Morpheus is very much a prototype right now, and a lot of what we're hearing are targets for what they want to push. But we do know that they're saying like 1080p. They're talking about it working in conjunction with the PlayStation camera, and they said Move too, didn't they? I'm not just imagining that, but they said that it would work in conjunction with Move and things like that.
I think they said Move, but I think people just assume it's the 2.0 model of
right,
Move.
but
but I actually don't think that they specify, but they might have.
But DualShock controller, Move support, 90-degree field of view. But
Oxygen atmosphere.
they also made a point to say that it's going to have 360 degrees of head rotation, which, as we all know, every human being on Earth is capable of taking advantage of with our 361-degree turning necks. Anyway, so the specs of the prototype are out there in the wild right now. We are expecting to see some demos this week at GDC, and frankly, that's the thing that I'm really interested to find out more about. I'm really interested to hear about some firsthand experiences. We know that they're going to have some demos that are one's referred to as the Deep. Then there's something called the Castle. And then we also know that they're going to have something, a demo level or something from Thief, Eve Valkyrie. And they've also announced that there's going to be support in this, unsurprisingly, from Unreal 4 as well as Unity, both of which support the Oculus Rift. So I guess this is kind of the question. If Sony and Microsoft are throwing their hats into the ring, then I suppose it's a safe bet that they at least feel like there's something to this, and they want to get in as early as they can. Obviously, the Oculus Rift, the dev kits are out in the wild now. The consumer version we're still waiting on, but the technology shows a lot of promise. And there's been enough demos and enough experience with the Rift in existing games, as well as demos and things that people have developed, that I think that people are getting a sense for, there's something here, and here are some of the ideas that can be explored. So the question, I suppose, is, does Sony and Microsoft getting in on this, does it mean that this technology is solid, that there is a foundation to build upon here, or is it going to be like, let's say, motion controls or something, going from the Wii to the Kinect or the PlayStation Move, where Sony and Microsoft said, me too, me too, me too, but weren't really able to recreate the experience or the success of the technology that they were copying, frankly.
Is there a success to copy yet, too?
Yeah,
let's
that's
be honest.
the thing.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I don't know that there is success to copy. And I do think on a large scope that, these companies kind of dictates to the consumers what is going to be popular based on their, look at Kinect. Like we say with Kinect with the Xbox 360, it sold a fair amount of use.
In Russia, you do not look at Kinect. Kinect looks at you.
Right. Well, I mean, it sold a fair amount.
And it takes over your peninsula
of units, but the persistent type of perception of Kinect with the Xbox 360 was that it wasn't of significant value to the experience. But yet, look at all the people who now have a Kinect 2.0 because
but they
of the
don't
fact,
have a choice.
And that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. They don't.
I don't know that really means that Kinect is popular so much as it was bundled.
But
I think that's what. Yeah,
that's exactly my point. Is that they will dictate what they want to be popular based on.
But the PlayStation 4 is already out, so I don't really see how
Well,
Sony
but I mean, if they
can-
start bundling,
Well,
you know,
let's
I
see
mean,
how
who knows,
Sony
maybe.
can
Okay.
do the same thing.
But I'm talking beyond this generation. Okay,
Okay,
I'm talking about in the future. They might be now finally making the initial steps in the same way that Microsoft and Sony followed the lead of Nintendo and said we're going to invest in motion controls. Okay, the Move was pretty much a complete failure. The Kinect was
I'll not have that said. It was a complete failure.
yeah, the Kinect was a little bit more of a success, but now we see that they both are carrying it over, whereas the Microsoft is saying this has to be bundled. It's an essential part of the experience. So as a result, we, the consumers, are forced to adopt this thing that they feel is the future. So VR is kind of in the same boat for me. I mean, I do think that it's weird for me because there's this disconnect. I feel that ultimately, you know, when I think about ourselves and gaming in the future, I mean, I guess VR is a part of that. And like the idea of putting a headset on, it feels kind of like in the 90s, the way they used to think of like, you know, when you go back and watch movies, or even in the 80s or whatever, you watch movies and they're like, oh, this film takes place in 2010. And you're like, ooh, that's the future.
Right.
You know, so like
Flying cars.
yeah, it's like, you know, like Back to the Future hoverboards and shit. And
Dying Mnemonic, you know, with the VR opening of the menus and shit.
Hey, he's got to get online. He needs a computer.
that's the way I kind of think of VR and actual headsets that people wear. But the point remains that like there has to be steps to get us to that point, and this probably is the first step in that. As much as I'm personally reluctant, like I don't want to play. I don't want to play in my living room with a giant headset on. I think that's just stupid. But at the same time, it might be completely awesome. I don't know. The onus is on these companies and the game developers specifically. They're taking a game like Thief, which I thoroughly enjoy, and saying, hey, put this headset on and experience it that way. And I'm just like, okay. But if a game is built from the ground up to incorporate this type of VR technology, then I'm more compelled to kind of see what that experience is like. So I don't know how it'll pan out over the long run, but this is probably a step in the process to get us where we'll ultimately be. But I'm a little reluctant out of the gate to just be like, oh, this is the best, you know, next thing since sliced bread.
Right.
Yeah, I think I probably reside somewhere between, I think, where the two of you are. I do have a question. I don't think any of us have actually tried like an Oculus Rift, have we?
I have
Any of
not,
us?
no.
Okay. DK, you haven't had a chance
I have
to do
not,
that
no.
either. The one thing I will say is a lot of this does just come from like what we sort of, you know, perceive that the experience is going to be like. You know, we kind of just trying to take the idea in and sort of get a feel for it. This is one of those things kind of like, I mean, who knows, maybe it is like the Wii Remote, where frankly, when you first saw it, you were kind of like, okay, that looks kind of neat. And then the first time you like tried it,
Yeah, the first time
and
you
it
played tennis
really
with it.
worked just as easily as you kind of thought it did. Now, granted, it didn't have a lot of depth to it, but it did work exactly like they sort of said it would. You know what I mean? So it made that experience really different from anything else. Whereas then you try something like Kinect, and you know, to be honest with you, sometimes it works really well, and a lot of times it doesn't work as well as I feel like it should. So it's sort of like you get kind of a mixed feelings about it. I think that we are definitely going to have, you know, this sort of technology be a big part of gaming sometime in the future. I think
Like
me and Brett have
consoles will
talked.
come with headsets kind of thing.
Kind of, or you know, or the headset is the console. Even at some point, I mean, who's to say? Yeah, it just blew your mind there.
Whose mind's blown now?
And eventually, maybe it's not even really a headset. I mean, maybe it's literally at some point. I think it
Microchips.
gets down to glasses, or yeah, I mean, hell yeah, at some point it does. You know, we talked about Ready Player One
Implant
and
the
the
new
world
Sony
that
PS6.
we talk about. Was it the PS9 that had like the little orbs that went like into your brain or whatever?
Right.
But you know, Brett, we've talked about like Ready Player One before,
Sure.
where like the future of that world is you literally plug in, and frankly, it's almost like the Matrix. You know, it's like the world that you're in is better than the real world.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's the potential for that to be, no, maybe
Is there
hopefully not that like
beer there?
post-apocalyptic, but like that, you know, that good
Yes.
kind of look to the future. I think that I sort of feel like it's a generation or so behind what we'll currently have, which I think will include.
Absolutely.
And but
that's the thing. The thing that's kind of interesting. I got a text from Esteban before we were recording, and he was saying, okay, so now that Sony's announced VR, can we safely say it's going to go the way of 6-axis, PlayStation Eye, Move, and you just like rattled off like all of these things that Sony had kind of tried and frankly failed to popularize. And I think that's a really interesting point because, in my mind at least, all of those technologies, in a way, by themselves don't really offer much, but in support of something like VR, suddenly they actually have some utility and some use. And that's the thing, is that VR is not just a headset. There's a few pieces of technology that all have to come together and work in concert to kind of deliver what we call VR. The headset is part of it, but it's not the only thing. And so I agree with Tony.
But is the main part of it, though, don't you think? I mean, like, isn't VR, I mean, when you look back at old school movies or old school visions of the future, they imagined VR. They didn't imagine 6-axis controllers and all this other stuff.
Well, they kind of did. I mean, like, a lot of them did sort of look into, but I think the whole point is you look at them and you also look at, like, what they show in their VR, and it's very simplistic, even at the, at their peak to what we see, unless they were doing, like, the fake real-world footage, like trying to say that was somehow done by a computer. The one thing, I mean, I definitely get kind of where you're going with that, Brent, and I think you're exactly right. It is, I will say that I think that, like, something like the Move does not work, really. Nobody really cares too much about it, but you put it in with that VR headset, it automatically then makes the headset better and the Move better. Like, they both sort of complement each other,
Those
and
things
the more
can
of that
enhance the experience that neither one of them by themselves can deliver.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that, definitely.
So I
it's
agree
like
with
male enhancement.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. It's not like that.
Once the sex industry adopts this VR headset,
my God,
that's what I've always said.
That, I mean, and really, it is kind of like we joke, but like the sex industry pushes things like video formats and all kinds of shit. I mean, like, let's be honest with you.
Distribution.
If Sony opened up their APK, that's a sexy line right there, to like the porn industry. Like, I think this thing is it's day one purchase for me.
Well, so and ironic. I mean, you say that jokingly, but I mean, you and I talked about this.
I really don't. I wasn't being sarcastic.
It'd be a hard. It'd be a hard sell.
It's absolutely true. But I really agree with you, Tony, in this in that I see all of this stuff as foundational. I see all of this stuff as being important building blocks, but until somebody puts all of these together in a comprehensive package, I don't see VR version 1 yet. I see a lot of pieces
it's
that
hard
will
for it to just come out of the gate and just blow us away. I mean, something this different, it's a little unfair to expect it to just like come out and be perfection right from the start. I mean, that's asking, I think, a lot.
It will take time to get there, but it's interesting to kind of see certainly how companies like Oculus and Valve, as we know, Valve had their own VR initiative. Now they've kind of thrown their support behind the Oculus, and they're going to take all of the R&D that they did and try to work with Oculus to make the Rift better. And obviously Sony and Microsoft throwing in. It's apparent that game companies see something in VR that has them excited and at least feeling like it's going to offer an experience that's going to translate into dollars.
Can you realistically see yourself wearing a helmet like that in your living room? Like,
I mean, depending on the experience it gives, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest, I couldn't see myself standing like an idiot in front of a TV and waving my arms. But if it works for the game that you're playing,
right? People buy bigger televisions, so they can have a better experience playing video games or watching sports. Why
people buy better controllers, better headsets?
Why wouldn't they buy a VR headset if it offered a better experience?
Yeah, no, I mean,
I think it's a bit more of a stretch. I'll give you that, DK. Like, I do, but I also think it's one of those things that we haven't ever done. I'm just
imagining my wife being like, "Dinner's ready," and I'm like standing in the living room, like looking.
Well, she'll obviously come into your virtual world and tell you dinner's ready. She won't just be walking up to you like a human person. Why are you assuming that you'll be in your living room? Why are you assuming that she's not just going to like give you a closet and be like, "Okay, you can wear your silly little visor in here. Don't scare the children by bringing it into the living room."
The VR closet.
One last thing I just wanted to bring up is I do think it is kind of interesting that this is the one thing I think we kind of touched on, but is the fact that it's like one company handling all their stuff. With Oculus Rift, it's still like Oculus Rift with Steam support and the companies making their games. Whereas like if Sony, having like they make the console, they make the VR headset, they make a lot of the games, like they might and a lot of the other peripherals. They may be, and Microsoft potentially too, if they bring out something like having one company be able to have full sort of control of all the aspects of it, that could be a good step. That could be the thing that sort of they have that window to it. And I also think it's interesting that the unit glows blue, because you know what happens if you take the blue pill. You stay in the happy virtual world. You don't go to the real world.
That's right.
I just thought that was kind of interesting.
And then one day you sell Kias.
That's when the pill wears off.
I'm pretty sure
That's when reality comes crashing back.
That's when reality sets in.
I'm pretty sure you just blew my mind.
All right, guys, we are coming up near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our Battle Cries of the Week. And we've already talked a couple times this week about the release of Ground Zeroes, the new demo, short game, whatever you want to call it.
Sort of.
We've talked about it a little bit. I was reading a story, and it was actually done by, I think, a user, and I do apologize because I didn't catch the name, but it was a user on Kotaku who had a post up, and he was kind of talking about how this is sort of a worrying sign of things to come, because he sort of sees Ground Zeroes as sort of, we've had, the game, then we had the game with DLC afterwards. This is almost like pre-game DLC. Like it's like the worst version of DLC that you could get. It's like you buy this sort of smaller encapsulated version to get stuff later in the game. And I thought he had kind of a good point. I don't know that I 100% agree with it, but I think it is kind of interesting. We've seen a few games. I think like Case Zero for the Dead Rising franchise is maybe an example of like a smaller game that comes out that has a little bit to do with the world that it's in. I mentioned Gran Turismo Prelude that came out, and there's a lot of pushback as to whether that's a good thing, for these games. Like, did it really pay off for them to kind of give you that little taste? A lot of people still to this day look at something like Prelude as a demo to Gran Turismo 5, and I don't think that that's perfectly accurate either, but I think that, I can see where people get that. And I do worry that this could be a thing that we start to see more and more coming in the future, is like parlaying out the game over time, buying little bits and pieces of it as opposed to just getting one fully realized experience. But it'll be interesting to see. Plus, in fairness, haven't played the game yet. I think I'm going to wait till Brent buys it, and then I'll borrow it after.
There you go.
Thanks.
To play on a 30-minute lunch break to beat it,
right,
before I give it back to him.
I've heard that you like to beat it on your 30-minute lunch break.
Oh, you bastard. All right.
He doesn't need a lunch break in order to beat it.
Let's be honest, I didn't need 30 minutes either. DK, what is your battle cry this week?
Well, as many of you know, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons is pretty much one of my favorite games. I just love the game. I don't know if you've had a chance to experience it, but it's super fantastic. So this past week, creator of said game, Brothers, Joseph Fares, said that he was working on his next project. Now, the game has won Best Innovation Award from BAFTA and also the Best Xbox Game from Spike and many other awards, of course. But in terms of the next project, Joseph said that he's moving on to the next thing and he has his next idea ready. He said it's super cool and it's very different. And quote, he said this: "I can tell you this, if I tell you the idea now, you'd say I haven't played something like this before." And then he said, "I can tell you more, but definitely something that hasn't ever been done before." So from the creator of Brothers coming this word that something that's never been done before is coming in his next project, I'm super, super stoked. And that's just not because I live in Colorado, but because I love Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, and I'm super interested in seeing what Joseph Fares has planned for his next project. So my battle cry goes out to him. Hopefully we'll learn more about this project next, very soon, and have an opportunity to discover what this is all about. And if you've played Brothers, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then go play it. It's not too late. Check this game out, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did.
I will, DK, I'll have to give you credit on this one. You talked about it quite a bit, and then we kind of gave you a hard time for so long. And, it was just recently, it was one of the free games on the PlayStation Plus membership.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I got to give it to you, I finally broke down and still haven't played it.
Here's the thing, and I'll say this. I will say this one more time. I will say this one more time on this show, okay? And I promise this will be the last time.
No,
well, maybe not.
It won't.
But you need to play this game.
You won't remember this in the morning. I just want to point out.
Honest to God, you need to play this game. Everyone who has access to this game needs to check this game out. This game is not long. I mean, you can beat it in probably 4 to 5 hours, but what happens...
Well, that's still like 4 times as long as Ground Zeroes.
Sure, that's true. But what this game does, and the fact that the entire game is a setup for what it concludes as, is one of the most genius things I've ever experienced as somebody who's been...
No spoilers, because I don't plan on playing it.
Okay, but somebody who's been playing video games for basically my whole life, to play this game, I was taken back by how... People throw the word brilliant around a lot, but what this game does is truly brilliant. And I mean, I know it doesn't sound like it when you look at the screenshots and you play it, but if you play through the entire game, it really is an amazing experience and something that is only able to be accomplished within the realm of interactive entertainment. So I truly encourage people to check it out. And again, of course, I can't wait to see what he cooks up next. Hopefully it'll live up to what he did before, so we'll see.
Very cool.
That's right. Thank goodness nobody's built it up too much.
Yeah.
All right, Brent, what is your battle cry this week?
My battle cry this week goes out to Infinite Crisis, the DC Universe branded MOBA. That's a multiplayer online battle arena.
MOBA.
That is in open beta right now. I think the open beta started. What did I want to say on like the 15th. I think it's been within the last few days. But anyway,
beta try it.
The point is that that Crisis is in beta now, and so there's a lot of new footage and stuff hitting YouTube, and people are doing Twitch streams and so forth. And I've been checking them out because I'm very interested in MOBA as a genre. I've not played anything to date. And I've talked about in the past how, like trying to get into like Dota 2 or something like that. Like it seems like so intimidating just because it's there's just like so much to it. It really does involve a lot of interesting aspects of RPG and strategy and so forth. So anyway, but Infinite Crisis is one that I've kind of had my eye on because I love comics and I love the DC universe. And it seems like it'd be a great excuse, a great opportunity to dive into this genre of game that I think is really interesting, but thus far I haven't actually played. So anyway, I was just going to let everybody know if you are interested in Infinite Crisis, you should check it out, and then I guess we'll have more to say about it once the game comes out.
Yeah, and I guess you'd hate to let that Aquaman costume go to waste. So.
Hey, man. You say Aquaman's not cool, but that's only because you haven't watched Batman Brave and the Bold.
That's
very true.
That'll turn you around on it. And then you'll be like, outrageous!
Damn it, Fluke. All right. DK, what? I think you have our member battle cry this week. Who's bringing it to us here?
I do. And it comes from Thlink, Thlink. And it goes a little something like this. Great show, guys. Thanks as usual. I think the artists in the video game industry are not protecting themselves enough. When the Writers Guild is on strike, this is affecting the whole TV and movie industry, and big majors, I don't know what he means by that, have no choice.
Is he saying they should be wearing condoms? I'm missing where he's going with this.
Have no choice but to negotiate. It's going to be hard for me to get through this now. Unfortunately, this does not exist in the gaming industry. Creators of movies, TV series, books, or music can become millionaires because of all the exposure they get in their respective industry. However, this does not happen in the gaming industry. Did someone as Patrick, what's his name?
Desilets
Assassin's Creed, really did really get the money he deserved for Assassin's Creed franchise success? I doubt it. Shigeru Miyamoto has a salary of $1.5 million a year. Shia LaBeouf got $15 million for Transformers 3. Miyamoto should, at least, be as rich as J.K. Rowling or Steven Spielberg, but he's tied to the gaming industry, so he will never get that kind of money. Time for the artists and the gaming industry to step up for their rights. And obviously this is in reaction to our topic last week about the role of people tied to projects. And, I got to say, I mean, part of me and the reason to spark that debate was this kind of angle is that, you see people like Miyamoto or people tied to big successful gaming franchises not get not only the monetary compensation they deserve relative to the success of the franchise, but the just the recognition as creative artists. So, I mean, I see definitely Flink's point here. How do you guys feel about it?
Number one, rights are things you can do by yourself on a deserted island. Anything you do with another human being is a negotiation. So I disagree fundamentally on a little bit of his premise, but there's nothing stopping anybody in the game industry from doing this right now. If Shigeru Miyamoto wants to walk in to Shuhei Yoshida's office, drop his balls on the table, and say, I want more money, he can do it. Yeah. And that's the thing is
jump ship and go to someone else.
He can quit Nintendo tomorrow and go do a Kickstarter and do whatever he wants to do. So I think that the notion that the game industry is preventing people from doing this is an interesting one, but it's not one that it's not one frankly that I see happening, because the people in the game industry are free to negotiate in any way that they want, and if they decide that they want more money, they can ask for more money and say, look, I'm king shit of fuck mountain. I create this, that, and the other. I'll fucking quit your goddamn Activision and go to EA and make Titanfall.
I agree with that. But let me just say, having interviewed a lot of these guys, including Miyamoto, the respect that they have for this medium is such that they value the medium more than they value themselves. So they're at a little bit of a disadvantage because they don't have that attitude. And they don't have the business sense, quite frankly, to be able to walk in and say that. I think it has a lot to do with
Japanese business sense versus
I
American
agree.
business sense.
A lot of that is Japanese culture, too.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But I think that there's more of a...
I mean, look at somebody like Cliff Bleszinski. Make no fucking mistake. Cliff Bleszinski is fucking rich.
Well, I was going to say, you look at like the guys behind Titanfall. I'm sure they're making a shit ton of money. And that's the thing. Like, you use someone like I agree, Shigeru Miyamoto should absolutely never, in the face of this planet, be making less than Shia LaBeouf. Okay, I mean that's a tragedy, but unfortunately, I think it's one that he really I want to say is I feel like he's okay with it. I think honestly, if Shigeru Miyamoto was money crazed, like if $1.5 million wasn't enough for him, I think he would go do something else. I think the fact is he likes what he does, and I think that actually is one of those things too. Like, we look at money as a sort of a thing of success. I mean, let's be honest with you. Shia LaBeouf is not a good actor, and he somehow got, $15 million for Transformers 3. That, it's some people just get lucky. Some people are good in quality, and frankly, are more like the very point you made, DK, which I totally agree with. They, in a lot of cases, care more about the art and the end result than themselves. And I think that's maybe why their games become so good. And let's be honest, I don't think they're... most cases, I think if they really were sitting there saying, like, look, this is not fair, the world we live in today, I mean, we see, like we just talked about earlier today, that Koji Igarashi is leaving because he didn't feel like he could make the games he wanted. He never said, because I wasn't making enough money at Konami. He's like, look, I want to do different stuff.
Sure.
And I'll be honest, he'll probably make more money doing what he's doing now too, I would just guess, because he'll probably have more control over it, but also like kind of reap the benefits of it more. So I don't know. I think you're kind of comparing apples and oranges to a certain degree, because it's not totally fair to say, well, this one movie star makes this and this one game developer makes this, because for one, you're also comparing, like I said, the Asian kind of business sense. I'd say most Asian actors don't make as much as the American actors too. So I think if you compare like an American actor versus an American game developer, in general, and pick the top kind of tier people, I think the numbers would be a lot closer than a lot of people would probably realize.
I think a lot of it, though, is on an industry level. I mean, like, Hollywood actors know what other Hollywood actors make. NFL athletes know what other NFL athletes make. The gaming industry is very reserved about its people and their relationships.
So maybe
to the
we don't know what they're making.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe we don't really have a good, maybe they are making, like, better money than I think most people give them credit for. I'm not saying that they should. I mean, hell, that's the whole point. I think to Brent's point that he was saying earlier, you should, this is the one great thing about, at least as far as America is concerned, is if you don't like the set of rules that are being dictated to you, you can have any opportunity you want that you make yourself.
Right.
So you can go out and do that. And that's the thing.
A lot of people associated with this medium are more passionate about the progress of the medium than they are about personal success.
Sure, and
so they're fulfilled in what they do, and we shouldn't be worried about how much money they're making.
Yeah,
that's
that's
true.
That's their decision.
That is their decision, but it is a point. Whereas part of me feels like they should be rewarded with success because of their passion for the medium. Whereas like a bunch of dickwads just demand what they like Shia LaBeouf or whatever the fuck his name is.
Or football players, things like that. No,
or
I
football
agree.
players just say, well, this is what the market says I'm valued at, so I'm just going to demand it, and then not, be actually worth it. And the gaming industry is filled with really good people who are passionate about our medium, and they don't get the just, kind of.
But again, where it's not as publicly known, I'm not so sure that it's as big a disparagement between the two as maybe a lot of people think there is.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you look at something like the deal signed for Titanfall, I guarantee you was a stupid amount of money.
Oh yeah.
Like it's something that frankly I think we would both look at and just be like, yeah, I would be set for the rest of my life the way we live and what kind of money those people probably got over that game.
Oh yeah.
So the same way that, like, again, and I agree, like, you look at some of these movie stars that get what they want. I can't imagine, that kind of money, but at the same time, I mean, that is what they have worked into their career.
We're all fucking.
Oh yeah, that's true. Very good point. That is actually very good.
Also, it's kind of interesting to point to like things like the writer's strike and stuff like that, as if it's a positive thing, because one of the things that the writer's strike do is it really puts incredible financial heartache on the people at the lower end of the food chain, like Grips, the people who work in the camera department. They suffer enormously during the writer's strike or during the Screen Actors Guild strike and stuff like that.
They have a whole lot more to lose.
I definitely get where he's coming from, and I do think the whole, like, it's I think people see though that as like, those people should be valued as much as these other industries, and my thing is that it's getting there. I think frankly they weren't making this kind of money 10 years ago, or especially 20 years ago. So it's a younger industry. You're going up against book writers, movie makers, sports stars. I mean, these things have been around for way longer than the gaming industry, and the gaming industry has been making up the distance, in leaps and bounds.
Well,
so I don't think we're too far away from that.
And
frankly.
just in closing, somebody did bring up a good point, and that is there have been a few in our comment section on Epic Battle Axe. Somebody brought up a good point, stating that there have been a few franchises like Sid Meier's franchises that he's put out, and also Tom Clancy and things like that. Those are name associations, and when you think of those, you think of a certain type of product, which that hasn't happened a whole lot, but those are very definitive examples of where it's been very successful. And I think that the gaming industry could benefit from having more of that. And like I said, I just want to see the people, because for me, my main concern is the progress of the medium. And if the only thing that the publishers like Activision and EA care about is the brand. Okay, developer XYZ comes up with this brand, they purchase it, it does well, then they milk it for all it's worth, and then those people leave and they still continue to milk it because they have the brand. We're not in a better state. As an industry, we're in a better state when creative people who are behind great projects have the opportunity to explore ideas and push our medium forward.
I mean, in fairness, though, that's your opinion on that, though. I mean, let's
It
be
is.
honest.
And
A
it's
lot
not
of the
also-
games
it's
that
not- and I
you
readily
think it would
admit
lead
it's-
to.
It's not the best business sense, but it is
Well,
something.
it also a lot of the games that it would lead to with your position might be games that you're more excited about, but wouldn't necessarily be the games that sell like 1 million copies, which in turn doesn't just mean that that company makes more money, but theoretically means that they've satisfied more customers. Theoretically, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's quite as easy as a game sold means a happy customer, but let's be honest with you, people don't just buy the same games over and over because they're complete crap every single time. They usually enjoy the experience more than less.
Yeah.
And so I definitely see where you're going with that, man. And I really do. I totally respect the point of definitely the point that Flink was making. It's hard to say a serious thing and then have to say that. But
All I ask you is that you just think about it.
Flink about it. All right. Well, that was like another episode right there. All right. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us this week. Please join us once again next week when we will be mercilessly cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day.
Hey, we're on a pretty good roll, by the way. How many episodes in a row have we done? I mean, this is like...
Oh, yeah.
Don't jinx it. Come on.
Yes.
We'll be taking next week off.
All right, so for Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams, I'm your host, Tony Grice. And remember, cry havoc and cry a tear for Mark Whitten, too, because unfortunately he is leaving the old Microsoft fold. I'm sure
a lot of other people.
Yeah, it's kind of been interesting. So early on in the one's lifespan.
Interesting's one word. Yeah, it's interesting the way that the people at Microsoft managed to botch what should have been the surest thing that a next-gen console launch could ever be, and now they're not there anymore. That's interesting.
People leaving the platform, it gives a whole new meaning to the word Xbox.